What's happening, folks? Back with another reaction, as well as a vocal Luca. And we're returning for another tune from the Code Blue franchise. This time we're going to listen to one from the third season, which came back, I think, like 8 years after the second season, so there was a long gap in between, and they play off that in the third season storyline, meaning the exact amount of time that passed in real life is passed in the narrative universe of the show, and the one-time graduates of the Code Blue program are now themselves like senior doctors or, experienced doctors, and they're helping to educate and integrate a new generation, a new class of med students looking to get into the most elite type of emergency medical service, meaning doctors that are taken to crash sites and other serious multiple injury sites or incidents to provide on-scene care and to helicopter victims back to hospitals and so on. So yes, this, as with all these soundtracks, Season 3 is composed by Sato Naoki, and we're going to listen to a tune called Aim Higher Goals, which, has a bit of a, not incorrect, just slightly, awkward syntax. Nevertheless, it is a tune that sounds like a team trying to do the best they can and to achieve excellence even in trying circumstances, so I think it is well named, even if, again, you can tell that the use of English is sort of secondhand. But ultimately, I love the music from all three Code Blue seasons. It just really has this drama, but also tenderness. There's a lot of variety, meaning across the course of all three of the season soundtracks, there's a notably wide or varied type of tracks, meaning there's tunes that sound like, Brazilian music, there's tunes that have like a techno electronica vibe, there's tunes with a very classical orchestration, there's tracks that have a small, minimal intimacy, and then there's tunes with a big sweep and grandeur. So Season 3 soundtrack is no different. This one, I would say, is a bit on the sweeping grandeur end of the spectrum, though with still some lighter, beautiful moments along the way. So let's give it a listen. This is by Sato Naoki from the Code Blue Season 3 soundtrack, a tune called Aim Higher Goals. fantastic. It actually is a good microcosm of the soundtracks plural for Code Blue overall, because within one tune we get some orchestral sounds, we get some electronic sounds, we get a more minimal and smaller, intimate type of intro, and at the end it sort of goes back to that. But for a large part of the track, there's a big sweep and drive to it, a steady kick drum with some power. So yes, even in one track here, there's some of the variety of the Code Blue soundtrack, and secondarily, this piece features a melodic motif that goes through multiple tunes, going all the way back to Season 1 and right on up through Season 3, and the film, which is to say there's a feature film, released in theaters that came after Season 3, and which I do have on Blu-ray, so at some point I'll probably do a Code Blue watch-along. It'll take a while, but I think it'll be worth the journey. But yes, the movie finishes things off, and it takes place right after Season 3, but I don't have the soundtrack to the movie. It probably exists, but yes, I have all 3 soundtracks for the individual seasons, and there's actually a special episode between Seasons 1 and 2, but it features the same tracks from the soundtrack to Season 1, so it's essentially like a bridge between Season 1 and Season 2, but in terms of the soundtrack, it's an extension of Season 1. But yes, ultimately, the same motif that we hear here, it's also in the final film. So, yeah, bottom line, it's an amazing show. I've talked about it before. It's a medical drama with a lot of medical-related case intensity drama, but there's also personal stories for the doctors involved, and at the very beginning of Season 1, they're just out of med school and in their first residency, and there's a sink or swim. Can you young folks really operate at this level, and can you stand the intense situations that you're going to be privy to, or that you'll be taking part in and trying to save people in? And there's a real learning curve, and the different personalities of the med students handle those stresses and pressures and intense situations differently, but over time they prove to be resilient in different ways. They help each other, they become sort of a family, and even though there are stresses and conflicts among them personally, it's, in the end, I think, a rewarding journey for all the characters and for us, the viewers. So, as I said, it might be a little bit down the line, but at some point I'd like to do a watch-along of Code Blue. Admittedly, I've talked about this before, some of the DVD box sets I have varying quality of subtitles. Season 1 and Season 2 are like that. I think it's mainly an issue in Season 1. Season 3 has excellent subtitles, same thing with the movie, but the point is, for those who are following me on the J-drama journeys, I doubt it would be an issue. In any case, shout out to Sato Naoki. I love that he's the composer for the entire run of the franchise. So, when they came to do Season 3 many years later, they brought him back, and, some of the pieces that he composed for this Season 3 soundtrack, again, they build off of motifs and melodies from the first couple soundtracks. So, yeah, Code Blue is just a great journey. Let me know what you think of this tune, and Luca and I will see you next time. Peace.